welcome. Hello, welcome. Hello, welcome. Hello, welcome. Hello, welcome to. Hello, welcome. Welcome everybody. Hello, welcome. Hello, welcome. Hello, welcome everybody to another installment of the We Got Next podcast. Hello, welcome everybody to another installment of the We Got Next podcast. Now, cuz it is our tradition here to take a deep breath. That's what we do. So we're gonna breathe in and breathe out. Ladies and gentlemen, we got my cuz here. This is going to be a very, very special episode. We got the marriage and family therapist here, Jakita Reed. Cuz, how are you feeling?
I am feeling great. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me, for sure.
Thank you for coming on, cuz Melody is the person that referred me to you. She said, you need to have Jakita on because it'll be a great episode. And I said, absolutely.
Oh, I love her. She's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, cuz, this is my first question. Mm-hmm. What exactly is a marriage and family therapist? What exactly do you do?
Good question. So, I literally am a therapist, counselor, just like, any other therapist or counselor. Essentially, what do I do? I mean, I work with couples. I love couples. Now, different marriage and family therapists can work with the individual, family, children, all multitudes of people for various different reasons. But I personally love working with couples, and I personally love working with women and college-age students. So that's really my population. But I mean, honestly and essentially, we just do therapy. I mean, people come to us for all type of issues with depression, anxiety, marital issues, parenting, all types of things. And so essentially that's what we do. We just help them solve some issues to get everybody back on track. Right.
So cuz how did this start? How did this come to be?
It is hilarious though, because I mean life is really funny to me. It's funny how things are in divine order. And for me, it started when I was little, but I didn't know that I was going to be a therapist. So like when I was 8, I used to write books and novels and movie scripts and all that, and I would always write about relationships. And so as I got older, especially in college, I was like still writing blogs and I was doing videos, but it never clicked to me that I would be a therapist. Because when somebody told me like you should be a therapist, I was like, what? Like no, I don't want to deal with other people's problems. I got my own problems, right? Like, and so eventually I was just still searching, doing some praying, some meditating, and my friends was like, you should be a therapist. I'm like, So I just applied and see what happened. And honestly, that's how it came about. I went to school, got my master's degree in therapy. Of course, I went to Michigan State for undergrad in journalism. So it was a completely different change because that love of writing was there. But it was what I was writing about that really intrigued me, and that's why I'm here. I just really love relationships, all types, different.
Can you pinpoint where it started? How long you've been loving relationships? How the way you were raised, did that affect your love for relationships?
You know what? It's so interesting that when I was little, I used to watch soap operas with my mom. So I was watching General Hospital, All My Children. But the thing I loved about it is the drama in there, and then the relationship things that they were having. It never clicked that it was relationship things that they were dealing with, but it was more so just like, I loved it. I loved watching Oprah. And honestly, this is so sad, but I used to watch Jerry Springer and my grandparents. So, I mean, the dysfunction was real in seeing this. And even if you think about, soap operas, the dysfunction is there. And then even in my own family, there's always been things going on. None of us is perfect. No family is perfect. So we all have different issues. So I don't know. I guess in somewhere in my little child mind, I played outside, but something happened dramatically when I was about 8 years old. My cousins on my mother's side were taken away from my aunties. So I didn't have anybody really my age to play with anymore. Right. I think I dove into writing and doing things like that and watching TV, and it all just came together. Right. So for me, I would say that's where it started. Like just that influence of watching those shows from my parents, my grandparents, and so.
So once it started, and then you say, okay, once you made the decision, okay, this is what I want to do. Yeah. What have you learned since then? Going to MSU. What have you learned since making that decision?
Okay, that's a good question. I think that I've always felt like my life was purposeful, right? Like I knew it was something that I was supposed to do in my life. Honestly, as a younger kid, I didn't really know what it was going to be. I remember in high school, I'm always like, people were like, "Oh, you're going to be a news reporter. We're going to see you on TV." That was a story because I loved writing and I love journalism. I love, shooting videos and recording my own radio shows. That's what I did as a kid for my play. But as I got older, I realized, especially when I was in undergrad, I had a kid. I was 21, I had a baby in undergrad at Michigan State. Like, don't know what I was doing, but I completely had that. And so, honestly, my baby turned out to be a blessing, but because it redirected me to really focus on what do you need to do? Because now I had a human to raise. You know, it wasn't just about me anymore. I couldn't just play games. And so, I realized journalism wasn't it, because I didn't really see myself. And when people would come to my school at Michigan State and do conferences, I'm like, dang, these are older, you know, white women. They didn't really have children or families, or maybe they had a husband or so. But I didn't see my nuclear family being fit into that. And so I ended up just, I don't know, afterwards, I was just trying to discover what I wanted to do. So I think in all, being really, you know, always searching and being really curious about what it is that you like, and not being afraid to like try different things. Because so many people downplay like, oh, why are you always jumping from thing to thing? But I've jumped for so many things that I've did in my life, you know, like doing hair, like babysitting, like teaching, being an educator. I did so many things, but it's taught me what I really wanted to do. And I felt like without trying those many things and having those opportunities, I would have never found the common denominator, which is I love working with people. But I love working with people and helping them solve their issues and their problems. So yeah.
So that's the perfect segue. What's the problem? What is the problem with couples? What is the problem with the current culture? What is our problem from your experience and knowledge? What is wrong with us?
That's a good question. It's so funny because clients come to me and be like, what's wrong with me? I think something's wrong with me. You know? And I love to tell them, like, you know, we all are human. You know, we aren't perfect. And therefore, because we all are human, we have our own brain, God gave us choices and things like that. It's like we're constantly trying different things out. We're constantly trying to figure out how to get it right, how to be with one another, how to be in existence. I think that's difficult for a lot of people because we have so many factors factoring into how our mental health is. And for me, I don't know, I think being open-minded and empathic, you know, I think so many people are always looking for one way to help guide them. And for me, it doesn't work like that. Like for me to be able to be a therapist, I have to be open-minded.
Absolutely.
Now, granted, there are some therapists who have one way of belief, and that's how they, you know, focus, and that's the clientele they look for. But for me, I think that we all, even couples from individual to individual, we all have our things where, I don't know, like we either stuck in it or, you know, we trying to get to it and we can't because we're stuck in somewhere. I think a lot of people are stuck. And they're stuck with so much information. It's just so much out here nowadays, you know?
Absolutely.
It's so much information out here. So I think people are really stuck on where should I be and how should I be and how should I do it? How do I get there? They don't know. And that's where all the problems really get, you know, start coming about.
So how much of the way that people are raised has to do with that? That people have this set belief that I was raised this way and this is no other way that I know.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I really do believe in a psychodynamic type perspective. Meaning, like, you know, for me, it's definitely childhood things that impacts who we are today. It impacts the type of people we become. It impacts the careers we choose. It impacts who we are in our own identity, the type of partners we choose, all of that, right? And so for me, it can go either way. It can go good or bad. It just depends on what your environment is. Also, it depends on the opportunities and exposure. So for me, I think that as growing up as a child, I don't know that I had a lot of, you know, relationships or therapists or, you know, just people around me in that sense. I had teachers. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a teacher. I had lawyers. I wanted to be a lawyer. You know, just things that you normally see. Teachers, lawyers, all kids want to do that. So I think that somewhere along the line, I don't know, even though we have these things in our childhood and they impact us and they influence us, because I think that's a great deal. I think most important is that we need to acknowledge them, be aware of how our childhood has impacted us, but it does not necessarily mean that that's where our future is going to be. And that's a big part in why some people come to therapy is that, like, they're stuck in the fact that this is what happens to me in childhood, or this is how my childhood upbringing was, or this is how my parents was. It does not have to be an intentionally bad thing. It can be something that people think is good, but it keeps that person stuck because it's not necessarily where they need to be in order to get where they need to go. So yeah, I totally think it's a huge factor, but it's not the only you know avenue. Like we can go the other way. It's cool.
So when you say stuck, what is stuck? Like, what exactly is someone being stuck in their marriage or stuck in their relationship?
Essentially, like, you're at a place where what you want and what you need is not in line with what your partner needs or what they want, or they're not able to give you that, or you're not getting that, or there's just some clash. So we're stuck in a sense of we're not meeting eye to eye. There's no, parallel lines. We're actually going perpendicular. We're going every which way, and we're not meeting where it's a comfortable spot. So being stuck to me is just, I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Like, how do I move from here? I love you. I want to be with you. But at the same time, how do I do that? Because we're having so many issues. There's so many things of us that's clashing together or preventing that from happening. And so that's exactly what stuck is.
Right. So how do we move forward from that?
Yeah.
How do you get someone unstuck?
Yeah. So as a therapist, I definitely talk with each of my clients and just really assess what it is that they're looking for, what the issue is, how they are viewing the problem, because it's important that we realize and know people view the problems very differently. You're going to view your problem very differently than I do, and vice versa. Sometimes there may be some things that go together, but not all the time. And so I think that for me, I ask questions. I love how you're asking questions.
Absolutely.
This is how you do in therapy. Some people think that therapy is about advice. It's not. It's really about asking people the right questions, because I believe in my practice that we possess our own strength. Like we already know what we need, but it's just that we need people to ask us the right questions. Sometimes we need support and validation to know that it's okay to feel how we feel, or that it's okay that we even have these ill feelings about something. And then sometimes just having people support you can just transcend a situation so much farther than people think. But sometimes we got to get out of our own heads. And that's what therapy is. It's like really helping clients get out of their own heads, or helping them get unstuck from, narratives that families have put on them, different facets of life have put into them, that this is the way you should do it, this is how you should be. Really getting them unstuck from those and challenging them to just, hey, what is it that you want? Does it align with this? If it does not, how can you get there, and how can you be okay with that? This is not going to meet each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, this is every time I have someone on, I have a selfish question that I ask. Cool. Now, my selfish question, but I think a lot of people can benefit from it, is mental health. And just how important mental health really is. And why is everybody so depressed now? Like, why is it is a depressing time, everyone's going through depression. Is this what's going on with us?
Yeah. Mental health is so important, because just like going to the dentist, just like going to the doctor to get to get glasses, just like us grooming ourselves physically and taking care of ourselves, it's the same way. Our brains, our minds are very much a part of our health. And so if we don't tend to that, and because there's so many things, so much information coming in, so much trauma that happens to us, so many experiences that shapes us, right? Because I totally believe that we are shaped by our experiences. And if you think about that, then that means that we can be all over the place at one point. And we sometimes need alignment to be in one space with who we want to be, who we are, what we believe in, our values, and our belief system. I just think now it's such a hard time because the pandemic is happening. Black Lives Matter movement, police brutality. There are so many things that are going on where, especially as a Black people, our culture, we just feel so, we're stuck, because part of us are trying to move forward and do the right thing. Okay, start a business, do this, be kind of sort of the outcast of our family, do different things that our parents or grandparents did, but sometimes we still get backlash for that. It's a hard pill to swallow. I feel like every generation has something that they're dealing with, and so ultimately there's going to be a ton of depressed people all the time, because something is, something is always going to be there for us. And I think for me, even as a clinician, I still deal with depression. I still deal with anxiety. And I think my environment is positive. So just because of you are a certain person or a certain caliber in your life does not mean that you're exempt from depression or anxiety. I think that, or any type of stress or mental illness for that matter. But I just think that as a people, we really have to be true to ourselves. And I think I was listening to the radio station, and even my husband was telling me, people need to be more of themselves. And people get so offended when you say that, because sometimes being ourselves will offend other people. You know what I'm saying? But we have to be okay with that. And not that we're intentionally trying to offend people, because I'm the most sympathetic, empathetic person. I do not want to offend people, but I had to realize, if being me, if not offending people means that I can't be myself and I have to live inside my mind, I can only be myself inside my four walls, I don't really know that that's a good sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Say, I heard somebody say that I'd rather lose you with the truth than keep you with the lie.
Okay.
That's
the bottom line.
I'd rather lose you with the
Yes.
truth. So is there a solution? Or are we gonna forever? Is there in every generation? Is it just gonna be a group of people that are depressed? What can they? Is there steps they can take? What can they do to try to ease this anxiety of the current times?
You know what? And I know I'm probably gonna sound biased when I say this, but ultimately, get therapy.
Absolutely.
I think therapy is such a stigma in our community. No more. It's becoming a little obsolete, though. Absolutely. I can really say that. Like, more black people, more black men, black women are going to therapy. And it's just not just a race thing, but I have to talk about us because this is the color that we are, right? Like, this is our experience. And at the end of the day, get therapy. And I know that a lot of people are very religious and they seek God. And I always think that that's a great thing because even me, I have a foundation. I know that. You see this journal? I have many of journals.
I was going to ask you about your
I have many journals because some people pray out loud or they pray, to themselves. For me, I write and I pray. I say my prayers in my journals. That's how I pray. Or sometimes I meditate, whatever, but I'm still talking to God for me. Everybody has their own, source that they go to for whatever they're dealing with. But I think that it's like the saying, when God brings you like a ship, and the ship passes you by like I'm drowning, and then you're like, no, I'm gonna wait for God, like I'm gonna wait for Jesus. But at the same time, He's brought you the ships. He sent you these boats. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I think that therapy, in a sense, is God's way of helping us. Like I don't feel like my career is just on here just so people can talk. You know, like I feel like people are definitely dealing with things that they need to work out, and so going to therapy is the number one answer. Right. It's like, what else can I possibly say to people aside from seeking help? Because we're trying to do things within ourselves. We're trying to do things inside the same families that we're struggling in. How? It's like really how. Sometimes you can take care of things at home, but mostly we need a mediator. We need someone who's unbiased. And I will say this. I know some people have had therapists and it didn't work out. Or like, they was like, therapy don't work. It don't work. Because I even meet clients that are mine that's like, I went to therapy before, it don't work. I don't think it helps me. One thing about being in therapy is that, and with anything that you're trying to face and deal with and get over, depression and all, is that you have to be constantly trying. You have to be in this open-minded mindset that, like, okay, if I keep putting the work in, if I keep trying, I gotta have faith, it's gonna work through. We can't just try one thing, like pray only. We can't also just try therapy only. We have to do, sometimes to me, a combination of things that help us stay grounded and really get us on the path that we need to. We need to use our human resources. I mean, like literally, physical humans. Like we need to use each other for our strengths and really seek help. And I mean, to me, that's the way that we get unstuck. I don't think that every generation is going to have depression per se, but I think that every generation is going to deal with something. I always wonder, like I talk to my husband all the time, like I wonder what our kids are going to say we didn't do or we did do. Or I wonder what they're going to be trying to defy, considering what we have tried to defy from, our previous generations. And I don't know what that is, but I think it'll be something, because if you think about black people, we've come far, but we still have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. So for the next few generations, for sure, it will be something that they deal with.
Now, you talked about your children. You have how many children now?
I have 3 girls.
3 girls. Wow. Now you're raising another generation.
Yes.
I'd ask your brother the same thing. Yeah. What are you instilling in them? Are you I know you're instilling that, seek help, but what are you teaching them as our leaders of tomorrow, as the cliche says?
I know, right? But hey, it is what it is, right? So, I mean, honestly, I think I try to be as, open with my children. Right. I try to be as understanding. I don't try to be their friend, right? I still carry that. I'm not your little friend. Yeah. I still carry that, but at the same time, I still want my children to know that they're human. I'm human, right? Because I don't think, as an adult now, it's so funny that I see my mom and my dad, I see them as, as actual humans. Like, you get to make mistakes. Absolutely. You're not going to be perfect with raising me. You're not going to be perfect at anything in your life. I think a lot of us blame our parents for a lot of things that happen. And sometimes they did cause pain. They did cause some unnecessary things. But it is what it is. Ultimately, we get older, we realize that, and we go seek help in the best ways we can. But for me, I'm more so teaching my children that they have a voice. And I don't like my youngest daughter, she's so loud sometimes. She's only 1, Mariana. And I was saying at first, like, you're too loud, be quiet. And I always tell them, y'all too loud. I stopped saying that. Right. Simply because I don't ever want my children to think that they're too loud, in the sense that I want them to always speak up, metaphorically. I want them to have a voice. I want them to try different things. I want them to be open to the world, because when they're like that, they get to see who they really are. They get to see what matters to them. My only teaching to my children aside from that is just be truthful, be honest, be transparent, be kind. Don't be afraid to be yourself.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid to accept others for who they are. And if you do but have boundaries for sure.
Absolutely.
Have boundaries for sure. There's things, I'm not saying just be open to the world, like, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna fly around, everything goes. Not like that in that sense, but in a way that you have values, you have morals, but you can also have an open mind to be understanding, empathetic, and just accepting and have boundaries. I mean, we all need boundaries.
Right, absolutely.
We all need boundaries. It's okay to say no. Definitely.
So I wanted to talk, I seen your little journal as we close.
Yes.
Your journal. Talk to us, how important is it to start writing, to start just putting down your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I've been writing since I was really young. So I've been writing since I was 8 years old, probably 8, 9, 10 years old. And I have a host of journals, all different colors, shapes, sizes. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's really important because it's my outlet. And you asked earlier, how can people get unstuck from just dealing with depression or things like that? But it's finding something you love to do, finding a hobby, finding something that really makes you release. Not anything unhealthy like drugs and alcohol and things that you don't really want to have a bad habit of. But I always tell my clients too, like, bad habits are created the same way good habits can be created. So if you want to break a bad habit, replace it with something good. And for me, especially since I have dealt with anxiety before and depression, writing is my best way to release. Writing is my best way to not feel overwhelmed. When all those thoughts creep in on Sunday, like, oh, you got to cook, you got to clean, you got to wash, you got to plan dinner for this week, you got to take the kids to school, you got to plan your clients. Like, when all of that comes in, I literally get my journal and I write it out. Because for me, mapping out what I have to do, mapping out these thoughts, it clears it from my head, and then now I'm able to really think and plan, and I just feel so much better. And I think sometimes people are afraid of doing the same things over and over and over again. But if it works, it works. Don't try to change it. And I'm guilty of that myself sometimes, that when things work, I try to be like, well, it should be something else I should be doing. Or we're always seeking more, but it's like, this works for me. Writing works for me. Having a journal works for me. I literally write everything, so I hope no one ever gets my journals. But I mean, it is what it is. I really this is my release for sure. Right.
And that, I don't know a better way to end it. Is there any last words? Is there any nuggets you want to tell the people, keep the people with, as we go through 2021, starting this new year? We're about to enter spring, a new season.
I know, right?
Is there anything you can tell the audience viewing?
Let me think. I will say, in this season, of course, just really being true to yourself, seeking information, being curious about where your information comes from. You don't just want to accept information from anything, but also thinking about what it is that I want. Like I typically ask my clients all the time, what do you want? And I had a client say to me before, no one's ever asked me that. And people don't get asked that. Sometimes people don't even ask themselves, what do I want? When you ask people, they be like, I don't even know. I want to go to sleep, or they'll tell you something immediately. But for long term, people can't tell you what they want. And this season, I really encourage people to find out what it is that they want, what it is they love, and do more of it. And do more of what's working, okay? Don't be trying to change what's working. Do more of what's working.
Wow.
That's all I have.
See, I wanted to end it, but that's deep. What do you want? That is very deep. People don't know that. People don't know what they want to eat half the time.
Okay.
People don't understand that. So, guys, I love you. God bless you. Keep going. You're chosen by God. As always, we got next. Thank you so much for coming on, cuz we love you guys. As always, I'll see you Monday.
But don't fret, we got next. We got next.